Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again, it is Sunday, and that means it's time for the Texas Gun Vault Poll Question of the Week, a weekly vlog that I put out where I ask you, as my viewers and subscribers, about something that deals with guns, gun culture, politics, current events, the news, or something fun like EDC that I want to get your thoughts and opinions on. And this week's question deals with myths and legends. Yes, myths and legends around firearms. Many of the answers that are on this poll today are things maybe you have heard, said, joked about, believe, or once believed about firearms. And these are things that sometimes even anti-gunners say, and we're going to talk about that when we get to all of the answers. But when it comes to myths and legends, are any of these true? Or have knowledge and facts and actual news reports changed your mind on these? Well, let's read the question and then let's get your results. In the world of firearms, there sometimes seems to be more myths, legends, and old wives' tales than truth and facts. I was reminded of one of these this past week when a Colt Anaconda revolver I was reviewing malfunctioned and ended the range trip early. Many of these tropes and sayings we have heard before, and maybe even given them some thought or credence. Do you believe or think any of these common firearms myths or sayings hold any validity or are based in reality? And by no means is this going to be an exhaustive list, because YouTube only allows me to have 5 answers. That's it. I really wish they would give us at least a minimum of 10, but I only get 5. So I picked what I thought were the most common sayings and myths about firearms. And I know some of you are going to say, these aren't myths. They're completely true and factual, but we're going to talk about that. But these are the sayings that I often hear new gun owners say more often than the experienced gun owners, because many of these sayings kind of hold a little bit of validity in your mind when you think about them on the surface level. Maybe you really haven't studied things like ballistics or actually looked at crime statistics, but on the outset you go, yeah, that makes complete sense. Or if I was in that situation, that's what would really happen. But as time goes on and you begin to learn more, see more, and you pay attention, you kind of go, well, yeah, I guess there might be a little bit of truth in that, but the actual practice of these is not reality. So let's go and see what your results are and what you think are truth and legend. With 880 votes as of me filming this video, we have 7 rounds of 45 ACP is better than 15 rounds of 9mm, 5%. Racking a pump action shotgun will scare an intruder away, 7%. Revolvers are inherently more reliable than semi-autos, 9%. Open carry of a handgun is more dangerous than concealed carry, 46%. And none of these are based in reality or fact, 33%. Now I have to say the results of this poll actually surprised me. I kind of thought that 5th option was going to be the overwhelming majority, but a lot of you said open carry is more dangerous than concealed carry. But I'll give you guys my opinions and experiences on that when we get to it. But let's start at the top of this list. We have 7 rounds of 45 ACP is better than 15 rounds of 9mm. So here we have 2 awesome firearms. We have a Colt Commander lightweight, of course in 45 ACP, a single stack 45 handgun. This can hold 7 or 8 rounds depending on the magazine you have inserted. And then I have another one of my CCW handguns. This is a Smith & Wesson Performance Center Shield Plus in 9mm, and this holds 13 rounds. So you get a lot more capacity in this gun than you do the 1911. But I know many people, when they look at these guns, they go, man, the 45 has all that knockdown power. You hold a 9 versus a 45 and you see the difference. And in your mind, you're like, man, that 45 is powerful. It's going to have way more kinetic energy. And so in a self-defense scenario, I want that 45. But I find that that's not always practical. There are so many variables to take into consideration besides just the size of the projectile. Well, when it comes to capacity, have you ever thought about being in an actual shootout? I mean, that's something that I never want to be a part of. I never want to get myself in a gunfight. That is not a place that I want to be. However, if that unfortunate day ever happened, I know that my adrenaline is going to be pumping. And while I shoot a lot at the range, and I think I'm a pretty decent shot, especially with both of these handguns, I know that due to that adrenaline pumping, I'm probably going to miss. And when you look at FBI statistics of shootouts, most of the time you're going to discharge 3 rounds at less than 7 feet, and you're going to miss the target. Yeah, that's what the statistics bear out. So which one of these would I want to have? And let's just say this is not a typical scenario. Well, you do have the 45 ACP with all that supposed knockdown power. Well, once again, your adrenaline is rushing. And what if I go through those 7 or 8 shots really fast? I'm just scared and I pull that trigger as fast as I can, and now I'm out. Man, I sure wish I had more in the magazine. So a missed shot of 45 is worth the same as a missed shot of 9mm or even 22. It is completely worthless. Another variable that people don't take into consideration is the recoil. Now, a recoil of a 45 ACP handgun is going to be a little bit heavier than that of a 9mm. So depending on your ability to shoot and handle recoil, this might not be the option for you. So if you have a handgun that you cannot shoot or use safely, and possibly you could drop, because once again, if you're in that scenario, all that adrenaline is going to be rushing, this is not going to serve you very well. And we also have ballistics. We all hear now that 9mm projectiles and all the science and the math that has gone into these ballistics, we now have 9mm projectiles that perform almost as good as 45. So today's 9mm projectiles, and if you're using defensive rounds that are plus P or plus P plus, you are getting a lot of power and versatility out of a higher capacity handgun. But I know especially a lot of older people, and by older I mean people that are a generation or two older than I am, maybe people that served in the armed services when the 1911 was the handgun, or served in Vietnam. They're always going to say the 45 is the way to go. It's America's caliber. It's humongous. It's what the Army used for 75 years. It's just the way it is. And I go, well, we don't want to be stagnant in the past. Yes, 45 is an incredible cartridge, and it still holds so much validity today, and I don't see it going away for another 150 or 200 years. It is here to stay. It is a valid cartridge. It is a great projectile, and you can do so much with it. It's also a great caliber to suppress. But so is the 9mm. And with ballistics and projectile design, we now have 9mm that can perform just as good as 45, be less recoil, and you get more capacity. I think you are good with either, but I think the myth of the 45 being better than the 9mm is just that, a myth. Now, I have one other thing to say about this, is I have actually researched defensive gun uses, and I cannot find a single example where somebody was killed trying to defend their life legally with a handgun, and the autopsy report or maybe the police report said, well, if they had a 45 and not the 9mm, they'd be here today. Because most of the time, the deciding factor on whether or not you get out of a defensive gun use is shot placement and number of shots. If you can get those things down, you can hit your target and you can put a lot of rounds on target. It's going to stop them, stop the threat, and it is over. It doesn't really matter if it's a 45 or a 9mm or a 22 long rifle. Now, I would say though that once you start getting below 380, you have some problems with ballistics. But the difference between 9 and 45, honestly, is not that much anymore, and it's a myth. So personally, I think both of these are awesome, and there's nothing wrong with either, but the myth that the 45 is better than the 9 is just that now. It is a myth. And then we have racking a pump action shotgun will scare an intruder away. Now, this is one of those myths that I hear pro and anti-gunners use all the time. The anti-gunners say, you don't need an AR-15 because all you gotta do is make that sound when someone comes in your house and they're gonna run away. You also hear the pro-gunners say, I got this awesome shotgun. If somebody enters my house, I'm just gonna rack that and they're gonna run away scared. Well, yeah, you think about it from that perspective and go, well, if I was in somebody's house, a dark house, and heard that sound, I'd be scared too. But also think about the tactical situation. Let's say somebody has entered your house. Maybe they have a gun, maybe they don't. When you do this, you have now given away the element of surprise. They might not know where you are or if you're armed. But once they hear that sound, they know exactly what they're up against. And maybe they're in a situation where they can't escape. So now what are they going to do? You've backed them into a corner. You possibly could have escalated the situation. Plus, a shotgun like this in an enclosed area is harder to use than a pistol because you have the longer barrel. So you have a disadvantage with the firearm itself. You give away the element of surprise, and I don't really think it gives you a tactical advantage. When you have a semi-automatic handgun like this, with every shot, the gun is going to automatically reload. With this, with your adrenaline pumping, and trust me, if you've ever shot a shotgun without hearing protection, which I have not, but I've been outside and only using earplugs, and it was still loud, well, that's going to jar you as much as it jars the intruder. You might forget to rack the slide a second time. And you also have the tactical disadvantage of having a longer barreled firearm because most of you are not going to have a short barreled shotgun, which is an NFA item, in your house. Yeah, you can't go around corners as easy. So this sound is not going to necessarily make somebody run. It could escalate the situation and it could put you in a more precarious situation. It's honestly a myth. And when you look at the actual statistics of people that have entered houses and the homeowners had a shotgun and racked the shotgun, we have no evidence that those intruders just go, well, it's time to get out of here. Well, if they have a firearm themselves or some type of weapon, now they're ready to fire and they're on a heightened sense of alert because they know they're going to have to defend their lives. So for me, I don't want to give up the tactical advantage of the element of surprise. To me, that is worth way more than some type of alpha, I'm going to rack this shotgun and scare you. Nope. If you enter my house in the middle of the night, I'm not going to give you a warning shot. I'm not going to tell you that I'm there. You're just going to be gone. I'm going to neutralize the threat. I'm going to stop the threat. I'm not going to give you a chance to defend yourself. And that's all racking a shotgun is. So the people that think that's going to happen, I think are both newbies to guns, and many times it's anti-gunners who use this myth to say, see, you don't need an AR-15. You don't need a semi-automatic handgun. Just get a shotgun, as Joe Biden says. Then we have revolvers are inherently more accurate than semi-autos. Now, if you've been watching my channel, and I even mentioned it in this poll, yeah, I took a Colt Anaconda to the range, and I was only through about 5 or 6 cylinders, and it locked up. It seized up. Now, I've owned revolvers in the past, and yes, I'm more of a semi-auto guy than I am a revolver guy, but I have had issues with revolvers, especially guns that do not have recessed cylinders. Sometimes, if not all those rounds are in there, you have a hard time getting it closed. You can also have those cartridges expand. They won't eject. You can't open the cylinder. Now, I understand from a mechanical standpoint, this is a much more simple firearm than a semi-auto. And people that might not be able to handle the recoil or manipulate the slide of a semi-auto will find a revolver a much more desirable firearm to have in self-defense. But that doesn't mean they're necessarily inherently more reliable. Once again, like ballistics, the technology that has gone into semi-automatic handguns, if properly maintained and if you properly trained, they can be just as reliable as a revolver. And this has been proven over and over again. The people that I think vote for this are people that absolutely love revolvers. And there's nothing wrong with that. I find revolvers to be a really cool type of firearm. And really, I should expand my revolver collection. But these are the people that go, well, revolvers are better, so I'm going to believe this because I like revolvers. and I'm just going to have confirmation bias. And that's something that I find having a YouTube channel all the time. When it comes to reviews, people are always looking for confirmation bias. I can tell you, I've taken revolvers to the range and I've had issues, not just with that Colt Anaconda. I've had issues with the cylinder locking up or pulling the trigger and something inside was just not right. I had to open the cylinder, put it back in, it slowed me down. So you have to train with a revolver just as much as you do a semi-auto. Plus, the loading and unloading of a revolver is more intricate. So even though the manipulation and the manual of arms of the gun might be more simplistic and it's a more simple machine, the loading and unloading can slow you down. And in a self-defense scenario, we've already talked about capacity, only having 5, 6, or 7 rounds of ammunition might not be enough. But from my personal experience, I've had as many problems with revolvers as I have had with semi-autos. So as long as you buy a quality revolver and a quality semi-auto, I don't think you're going to have any issues. And the truth be told, if revolvers were that much more reliable than semi-autos, militaries and police would still be using them as their main sidearm. But why have they gone to semi-autos? Because they know that these things can go 9,000 or 10,000 rounds before a failure. In fact, that's what they test for. So the people that are procuring hundreds of thousands of firearms that want their soldiers to be equipped with the absolute best, if revolvers are more reliable, why haven't they gone back to revolvers and why are they shooting semi-autos now? Now the next one is the one that got the most votes. It got 46% and it said the open carry of a handgun is more dangerous than concealed carry. And I was thinking, why in the world did this get the most votes? And I think I figured it out. It's because as compared to the other 3 options I've talked about so far, this is newer to us as gun owners because for a long time we have not been allowed to open carry handguns. We don't see it very often. You know, back in the Old West, it was considered to be polite to open carry. It was the dangerous people, the seedy people that concealed carry because why would you want to conceal carry? Are you doing something nefarious? But today it's the exact opposite. We look at people that are open carrying, I guess myself included, and become a little bit wary. Why are they open carrying? But the truth be known, when I have open carried, and yes, here in Texas, we are allowed to open carry, and I do it very judiciously. So if I'm going to some type of a rally, or if I'm going to a certain place that I know is very Second Amendment friendly, I will open carry. Most of the time, people don't even notice. One of the greatest tactical advantages you can have in any situation is to just have situational awareness. Take the time to look at the exits. Take a look at the people inside the restaurant or the place that you're at. Most people live in their own little bubble. You could open carry 2 handguns and they won't even notice because they aren't even looking at you. And if you're dressed appropriately, a lot of times people are going to think you're just an off-duty police officer. Most people don't care. If open carry really made you a target and made things more dangerous, well, why do police do it? We see them walking around. Why are they targets of criminals? After all, they have the handgun right there on their hip as well. This has all been proven to not be truth. I know in our mind we think, oh my gosh, the open carrying of firearms is so much more dangerous. But once again, you will be hard-pressed to find any situation where an open carrier became a target of a criminal. A lot of times the criminals aren't even going to risk it because think about the mindset of a criminal. They want to inflict the maximum amount of damage, or whether that be a burglary or robbery or even to hurt you, using the least amount of effort where they're not going to be injured. If they already know somebody's open carrying, yes, you might be a target from the perspective of they're watching you, but you're no longer a target from somebody that they want to rob because now they know there's an elevated risk that they could be shot and they think, is it worth it? Probably not. Once again, I'm just going back to statistics. I do see people open carrying handguns, and I know many other states like Arizona, you can do it. But do we see an increased problem with open carry? Do we see that people open carrying are actually being robbed or attacked at a higher level than people that are concealed carrying or not carrying at all? No, we don't see that in the least. So what I'm trying to say is, well, some of this stuff makes a lot of sense because we look at it from our own perspective and we look at it at a very surface level perspective. We don't actually think about the deeper things that can happen. We don't think about, what are the ramifications of this actually occurring? But just on that surface level, because when you see somebody open carrying, maybe they aren't dressed as nice as you would like, you go, they have a sidearm. But the truth is, if they were concealed carrying, they'd be the same person. You just wouldn't know. So the only thing that has changed is your perception. You were blinded before. You didn't know there was an unknown and you were completely fine with it. But you were in the same dangerous situation. In fact, when other people are concealed carrying, you're probably even in more danger because now they have the tactical advantage of the element of surprise. So, as I said, when you look at the statistics of open carry versus concealed carry, you'll actually discover there really isn't any difference whatsoever. And I think that's a really important thing for us as firearm owners to do. We need to be looking at these things logically, rationally, looking at the statistics, because we have a lot of data points now. We have a lot of states that allow for open carry. So we can learn from them and then go, does this work or not? It doesn't matter what we feel. You can feel whatever you like, but you have to look at the world through the lens of truth and facts. And when you actually see that open carriers are in no more danger than people that are concealed carrying, you have to go, well, maybe this is a myth or legend. And then finally, we have none of these are based in reality or fact, 33%. Now, if I was going to vote, this is the one that I would have voted for. But I wasn't always this way. It's only because I had been in the firearms world for so long and I actually follow things like crime statistics, I pay attention to the news, that all these things are myth. They're just surface level wise tales of, yeah, if you rack that shotgun, it's going to scare somebody. And when you actually look at the actual practice of that, that's not the case. Remember, we should be living in a world of facts and knowledge, rational thinking, not a world of feelings, because that's where the anti-gunners reside. When you only go by feelings, you're going to make poor decisions. I'm not saying don't have feelings. That can be a starting place for a lot of people, but go deeper than that. Just because you feel something doesn't make it truth. That's what I think about all this. So maybe some of you guys are already typing on your keyboards frantically telling me how wrong I am. But let's see what you guys had to say with this week's top rated comments and see if you guys disagree with me. And with our top rated comment of the week, we have Rose Marcilli, who says, not sure about the others, but I could understand why open carry might be problematic in certain situations. For one, it could open you up to confrontation in some way. Let's face it, even if there isn't anything dangerous happening in an immediate setting, the world is full of assholes. And secondly, if you do end up in a violent encounter, the element of surprise might be an advantage. Good training is important, of course. And Rose makes some fantastic points. They've thought about this situation, and I completely agree. But once again, this comes into the what if scenario. Yes, this could happen. But anti-gunners use this logic as well. They say, if a mass shooter has access to an AR-15, well, they can inflict more damage. Therefore, we need to ban everything because trust me, you can come up with a hypothetical situation, regardless of how improbable it is, and come up with a legal justification to take your rights away. What's important is to look at the facts. And as I mentioned, we have so many data points from so many states, we can tell if this is truth or fiction. And it looks like these scenarios are more fiction than they are fact. But it is good to always think about those scenarios because you do want to have the best tactical advantage in a potential defensive use with a firearm. And honestly, concealed carry does give you that element of surprise. Then we have Joe Morgan who says, facts are different than feelings, but I like things that aren't the best either too. Yeah, once again, facts and feelings are different and I completely agree. And I guess it kind of depends on your personality type. For me, I'm a thinker. I don't really exude emotions all the time, but I know people that do. And it's really easy to win them over to one side or the other, especially the anti-gun side, because they're thinking with this and not with this. Then we have Skate and Review, who says, if you are open carrying in a city, I promise there is someone watching how you move or waiting for you to let your guard down. Well, I gotta say, people are watching you no matter what. And if they don't know that you're armed, they're probably thinking you're a bigger target than what you actually are. Now, therefore, you will have the tactical advantage of the element of surprise if you are concealed carrying. But I would have to say, for the most part, criminals that just may want to mug you to get $20, they're going to move on to somebody else if they know for a fact you're armed. And once again, when they look at a cop, do they do the same thing? Are they like, I'm going to wait for that cop to lower his guard and then I'm going to take his gun? I have a feeling that if this scenario played out more often, we would see cops having this issue, but we don't. Then we have Dancing Panda, who says, racking a shotgun slide will scare off a certain portion of intruders. The problem is that it should not be relied upon for all circumstances. In a pie chart of results, a certain unknown portion will be scared off by racking. Yes, I'm sure they would be scared off, but once again, you have to think about the scenario. What if they're in a room and the only exit is a doorway and you're standing in that doorway and you've racked that shotgun and they don't want to get killed and they don't want to go to jail? What are they going to do? Well, you've backed them into a corner and now they're going to fight you. And in that close of corners, they might get that shotgun and turn it back on you. You've given up the element of surprise and you're using a long gun in an enclosed space. So many variables. But just like concealed carry, yes, you do have a tactical advantage because of the element of surprise. Well, the same thing should apply here. A semi-automatic handgun in an enclosed space that doesn't need to be racked is going to give you that same advantage. Then we have Chris H., who says, only one I'd argue is open carry. It could be more dangerous as now people know you're armed. A bad person, or worse, a group of bad people, can formulate a plan to attack and take your firearm when you are distracted. Concealed carry gives you the element of surprise. It's the reverse Uno card in a self-defense incident. That being said, I still open carry my 10mm on the range days or activities where I find myself in the woods or mountains. So what I think that we're arguing here is the tactical advantages of concealed versus open carry. But when it comes to the actual crime statistics, what bears out? What's the actual facts of the situation? Think about it. None of us want to die. None of us want to get shot. And if I see somebody open carrying, even if I'm in a group, I know that attacking that person, if it doesn't go according to plan, well, someone could get shot, and that person could be me. It's going to increase the probability that I'm not going to come out of this alive. And I think to myself, is it worth it? Man, when you see somebody that doesn't have a sidearm, you might think they're a victim, and your courage could get higher. And you think, okay, we're going to attack this guy because he's unarmed. And as I said, that probably makes you a bigger target because the facts and the history of open carry versus concealed carry bear that out. And I know a lot of people, when they think about it, are going to go, well, open carry obviously is more dangerous. I don't recommend open carry. I recommend concealed carry. But I'm just talking about the facts of the matter, what happens in the world. What is honestly the outcomes in all of these scenarios? And it appears that open carry is no more inherently dangerous than concealed carry. As I said, we can talk about tactical advantages of one or the other, but there is no statistics bearing out that people open carrying are targets of crime or other people trying to do nefarious things. It's just not there. If you can show me where that is, I would love to read about it. But remember, a one-off incident is not enough data to say, well, I'm right, because one-off things happen all the time. Concealed carry people get mugged, just as I'm sure an open carrier could get mugged as well. We have to take all of the data points and be able to kind of chart that on a map and go, well, you can see that concealed carriers get this much, open carriers get this much, and then you can begin to see a correlation. However, in this case, we just don't see it. So all of these, in my opinion, are just myths and legends. But I understand why people believe them. So what do you guys think? Am I completely wrong? Do you still believe these myths and legends? If you do, it's perfectly fine. But I ask that when it comes to any of these things, do your own research. See if what you believe is actually backed up by data. That is the reality of the world. You can feel anything you like. That's okay, and I support that. But don't go around believing things that aren't true. Just because you want something to be true, like for example revolvers being more reliable than semi-autos, doesn't mean it's bared out by facts. And I think that's really important for us on the pro-gun side, to live in a world of facts, because that's where we have the advantage over the anti-gunners. So that is the Texas Gun Vault poll question of the week. I'm curious to see what you guys have to say. And if you would like to participate in next week's poll, please go to the community tab of my YouTube channel. I will also post a link in the description. Go over there, see what the poll is about, vote, comment, and like other people's comments so we can get the top rated comments of the week. I always enjoy making these, and this one was a really fun one to make. So once again, let me know what you think in the comment section below. And as always, thanks for watching.